Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2, Quick Magic gameplay. So, as you guys probably know, the patch has arrived. We've got all of the Norskins, we've got the new Wood Elf, or the new Wood Elf regiments of renown, the Chaos regiments of renown, Beastmen regiments of renown, the two new lords for High Elves, a new lord for Dark Elves, despite glitched, all sorts of new units. It's pretty awesome right now. And so I've been doing a whole bunch of Quick Match, probably going to be uploading quite a few games. And this first one's going to be a bit of a triple cast. There will be an Empire game in here because I was kind of trying to get some use out of the new units and trying to see how the matchups are now with some of the changes to to different factions. But regardless, this first one's going to be Norsca, which I'm sure most of you guys have been hyped for and waiting for. That's been a faction we've been missing for almost like half a year now, so pretty awesome. So regardless, this is the map Womp Gulch. We are going up against the Empire, so a bit of a classic Warhammer 1-esque matchup. And so for my lord, I decided to bring good old Wulfric the Wanderer. I think he's a very strong lord choice still. Obviously, I don't know much about the meta right now. It's still a little too early to call, but nonetheless, I figured Wulfric could be decent, because you do have Rage, of course, on that's his own personal mechanic. He's got the Norscan mechanic. He's got Hunter of Champions, which is a great Elseef-esque debuff. And I personally actually think it's a little better than Elseef, because I do believe the debuff's a little stronger. And I'm hoping to make use of it to hunt enemy casters or lords like Karl Franz or Boris or Volkmar or whatever. Fight or Die, of course, as well as Seafang. And Seafang's decent at wiping out mobs, and it honestly still is pretty strong. It used to be good in Warhammer 1, and it's still pretty solid now in Warhammer 2. Now, here in the front line, we do have 2 units of Marauders anchoring the flanks. At the center, though, is a mob of Marauder Berserkers, and these guys, of course, are absolutely ridiculous. They've got crazy stats, good mobility, great leadership. They've got Frenzy, they've got Berserk, though, which is an interesting mechanic. It grants physical resistance and melee attack, but when you hit stage 3, your units start to rampage, which is actually a bit of a downside, but it does make sense with the Berserk mechanic. There have actually been quite a few changes to Norscan units, and this is definitely one of them. This is one of them for the Berserkers. They are backed up by a single unit of Familiar Warriors here to provide some AP, but more importantly, armor sundering, which means that combined with the Brutes of the Hound here, if my opponent has some great swords, these guys will be able to cleave through them really quickly. On the other side, alongside them, we do have a Familiar Balefiend, who once again is going to be applying that same armor sundering effect, coming in, of course, with Lore of Fire for cascading Fire Cloak, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and all those goodies. And the Familiar Balefiend does get Arcane Conduit, so pretty good Winds of Magic generation too. For my backline, I do have 2 units of Marauder Hunters with Javelins to try to help deal with Knights, enemy Flyers, honestly, to counter skirmishers like Outriders. These guys will do okay. They've got 90 range, they've got 35 missile damage, of which with a 15 bonus for its large, though, which is monstrous. They can do a lot of hurt very, very quickly. And then out on the flanks to counter enemy large, we've got Skin Wolves, Norscan Ice Trolls, and on the other flank, the Maws of Savagery, which are, of course, the Regiment of Renown that has AP. And, of course, Skin Wolves are still absolute beasts. The armored ones here, decent armor, decent mobility, great weapon strength, and bonus versus large is something like 30. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. For my opponent, a bit of a classic Empire build, nothing too fancy. Now, it is worth noting that handgunners have been buffed in this last patch. They got +1 AP and +1 normal damage. Otherwise, there was some additions to mass for Empire Cavalry. And otherwise, I don't believe there's much to say. Volkmar, I think, is basically still the same he used to be. This front line is an interesting mix of unbreakable units, cheap chaff, and a single unit of Great Swords anchoring in the middle. And you can already see my poor Berserkers are getting chewed apart by that hail of fire from the handguns and from the silver bullets. And you can see my opponent has a good bit of shooting here. He's got the silver bullets, he's got the Free Company, or the Stones of Enchar, he's got the Free Company Militia, 2 handguns in the center. And in the back, he actually has a unit of Halberdiers, which I forgot. So it's a very motley assortment of units here, but potentially very potent. Sigmar Suns get cheaper, which is nice, and that means that they're potentially much more spammable, or much more much easier to bring. Even though they did lose some melee defense. And you can see immediately the engagement is going off. Of course, the Berserkers are actually raking in an immense amount of kills right on the charge, despite the fact that they got horribly mauled. And you can see immediately I'm dropping Flaming Sword of Ruin. Meantime, on the flanks, you can see the Maws of Savagery, having used the Marauders as a bit of a cushion, are diving in on the Demigrave Knights to tear them to shreds. And they've got Wulfric in there as well, providing his damage output. And over here, I do have 2 Marauders with the Hunters with Javelins, pushing in to start teeing off on the Free Company. In the back line, in the meantime, you can see I'm trying to shut down these Empire Knights, but they are fleeing. I did have those Norscan Ice Wolves in there, because Norscan Ice Wolves have that Frostbite effect, which is really potent. And so my hope was to use these guys to shut down the Empire Knights and keep them in a fight and be able to wipe them out. Meantime, you can see the Marauders here trying to zone away the Stone's Revenge, and in the pits, my opponent is bombarding my Brutes of the Hound, but I do get that lovely Flaming Sword of Ruin off. You can see the Familiar Warriors here just clubbing down all of these cheap Empire infantry, which really doesn't stand a chance against them. And Fimir Veilfiend in there, debuffing these great swords, and things are going pretty well. You can see that flank getting wrapped up already. Bombardment does go down. You can see, though, my opponent does pressure my backline a little bit, so I'm forced to pull my Marauder Javelins back, but the Demi-Groups get slaughtered. Maws of Savagery make quick work of them, with the help, of course, of the Marauders, and they completely shatter, so good stuff there, and you can see the Marauders are immediately pushing through, going after the Free Company Militia. In the meantime, you can see Wolfric does manage to rout the spears with the help of these Marauder Berserkers, who are raking in kills like it's no tomorrow. Volkmar the Grim, though, does dive in, popping all of his buffs and immediately laying waste to the Fimir Warriors, so definitely some rough stuff for them, though they are hitting back slightly. He does, of course, have built-in regen. Of course, on a horse, at least he doesn't have banishment, which can be potentially really potent. My opponent does have Wind Blast, so he's been casting that quite a bit. I forgot to mention he does have Lord of Heavens here. Mounted on a Pegasus, so I can't do much about him, with a good selection of spells. The Wizards also did get changed, though not that significant. They just got a new item. Nonetheless, you can see, which my opponent didn't bring here. Nonetheless, you can see the Celestial Wizard is kind of hovering in here, being a nuisance, and my poor Skin Wolves basically rout immediately after taking a single volley from the Silver Bullet. So definitely some brutal stuff there. But you can see here, with Hunter of Champions active, Volkmar the Grim has been completely destroyed. It just wore off, but he's been completely annihilated by Wolfric, who's just running amok. Wolfric got a lovely Seafang on this blob, and that's actually why it broke so quickly, and unfortunately I forgot to, didn't manage to get a nice shot of that, but that's why that blob broke so easily. Over here, you can see the Maws of Savagery are doing some mop-up duty. They're chasing after these handguns. They're trying to shut down these swordsmen and just pursuing them off the field. And it's a bit of a waste for such a high-end unit, but really, if I can get this many troops off the field, it doesn't matter. It's still cost-efficient. Same with over here, the Marauders chasing Free Company off the field. You can see Volkmar is routing, and I'm not pursuing him because I really feel that I need to mop up the rest of this army here. You can see the Skin Wolves, of course, with their regen, are slowly but surely recovering health. Unfortunately, the Marauders here are going to get rear-charged by the Halberdiers, and they're not going to be able to wipe out the Sterling's Revenge, so that's going to suck for them. But, you know, they tried their little hearts out and baited my opponent's troops away. Anytime the Javelins do try to zone away this Celestial Wizard, doing a little bit of damage here and there, peppering him down. He doesn't have much armor, and he's not exactly the tankiest, so definitely can be beaten down. Over here, Berserkers are chasing the Silver Bullets, who are just not fast enough. They've only got 33 speed to the 37 on the Berserkers. And the Berserkers, though, with the Frosthounds, or the Ice Wolves, and the Skin Wolves diving in from the front, really don't stand a chance. They're going to get caught here in the pits. And you can see this Fimir coming in. And I just absolutely love the effects. You can see the water glistening, and the Fimir just absolutely dumpstering these guys. And poor Silver Bullets. Makes the Empire player that I am definitely makes me weep, but you know what? They get wrecked, and with that, the game is basically going to be over. You can see the Skin Wolves over there still routing that mob, and despite Volkmar rallying and coming back, it's going to be GG there. So a fun game for Norsca. What to say? Norsca's still strong. I think Norsca's still competitive. I think it's worth well, I'll probably do a separate video just to discuss some of the changes that were implemented to Norsca, because they were not mentioned in the patch notes, because Norsca was simply a new faction added. But not everything is the same as it was in Warhammer 1, so I think that's worth noting. And I think I'll do a video discussing the specific changes, or the most notable changes from the Warhammer 1 version of Norsca, because there are a few, and I think it does make Norsca a little different. Nonetheless, you can see the monstrous output of some of these units. When my opponent blobbed up that I got a Seafang off, Wolfric managed to get 144 kills, so absolutely monstrous, and that is mostly thanks to Seafang. So still potent wind spells, still devastating to the right targets. Fimir Warriors, great tool. They provide armor sundering. They're very expensive, but they've got great armor. They've got missile resist. They've got armor piercing. They've got magic damage. They've got armor sundering. They're just so amazing. Fimir Warriors are great. I definitely think they work really well with Marauder Berserkers and just overwhelming enemy lines and shocking their way through heavy infantry. Now, granted, I probably wouldn't bring them against, say, dwarves, because dwarves are very expensive or have magic resistance and can probably shoot your Fimir down. But nonetheless, I think they're a decent choice. You can see the Maws of Savagery as well as the Skin Wolves that performed rather well. So all in all, I'd say the roster's pretty strong. Obviously, Marauder Hunters are cheap, and even the Marauders did okay. So, yeah, basically, I think the Norscan roster's pretty strong. Empire did get a handful of buffs, and definitely be wary of the handguns a little more than you might have been before. Crossbows are slightly stronger as well. They got one more AP point. Otherwise, though, most of Empire's buffs have gone into artillery, and I'm hoping to get some proper playtime in with Empire. It's been a struggle to get good matchups. People kind of throw out factions that aren't really ideal for testing the new units out against, so it's been a little tough. But Nonetheless, I do think Empire's a little better than it used to be, and definitely a little more potent. And for my opponent's build, I definitely think it was a little iffy. It was kind of tried cramming a whole bunch of different stuff here from Darth Jar Jar. This Motley front line, I do think that against Norsca, you actually might be better off with a Greatsword front line. You can go fairly. Your Greatswords will hold fairly well as long as you have some handguns to kill Fimir and prevent them from damaging your Greatsword's armor. You can gun down Fimir. Otherwise, bring crossbowmen to break up the Marauder Berserkers. Either way, I think that Empire's best front line here is Greatswords. Much as it can be one of your better front lines against, say, Lizardmen, because Greatswords are just better than Lizardmen units. So I think a mix of Greatswords and Spears is probably the best way to go with Empire. That's my 2 cents. Maybe Sigmar Sun's in there as well. Empire Knights, I think, are not a good pick against Norsca just because they get dumpstered by Skin Wolves. And Demigryph Knights, obviously, are just not that good of a pick. They never have been. You're much better off bringing Demigryph Knights with halberds. But nonetheless, great game from Darth Jar Jar here. I do hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we're going to be hopping right on over to another match. So here we are on the Doomgate. This time around, playing as Empire against the Wood Elves, and really in this matchup, I did want to kind of look at the changes to the Wood Elf roster, more importantly, the new regiments of renown they acquired, because by and large, the Wood Elf roster stayed the same. You can see that for my army, nothing too fancy. It's basically a standard build. A front line of swordsmen, anchored around Sigmar Suns, 2 units of flagellants out on the flanks. I didn't bother with great swords this time around. I do have silver bullets in the back, light wizard in the center with net of Mintok and Frost protection, and of course Power Stone. And out on the one flank we do have 2 Knights of the Blazing Sun as well as an Empire Captain, and that is mirrored on the other end, except we have Boris Todbringer in there instead of the Captain. So basically a pretty standard anti-Wood Elf build. Definitely, if you're looking for a competitive anti-Wood Elf build, I'd definitely say this is a decent choice to consider. I'm hoping to get some more testing with more of the Empire artillery changes against factions that are more where it's less risky and less unreliable. But nonetheless, really what I wanted to look at here was some of the new regiments of renown for the Wood Elves, and they're obviously pretty cool. You can see my opponent brought the Wardens of Cithrall, who are basically they're Wildwood Rangers on paper, but basically they are amazing Eternal Guard. They've got armor sundering, they've got AP, they've got bonus first large. Really, their stats are pretty comparable to Eternal Guard, but they do have Vanguard, they do have Stalk, they do have they're just very powerful. They're just roided up Eternal Guard basically, and then they're very strong. And my opponent here vanguarded them right behind the Hawkeyes of Drakira, who are amazingly powerful as well. Way Watchers, you can see roided through the roof. And they do have a smoke bomb as well as the Discourage effect. And Discourage is the most powerful single leadership debuff you can get in the game. Minus 16 leadership is huge, so especially combined with, say, Fear and Terror, it can be an absolute nightmare to deal with. So my opponent brought a unit of Hawkeyes of Drakir, he brought Waystalker. The rest of his army, fairly conventional. You can see the Branch Wraith running away here with its Penumbral Pendulum and Earthblood. You can see 2 Dryads out on the periphery, Treekin, 2 Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts, an Eternal Guard with Shields, and a Glady up in the sky with on an Eagle with Brave Anathrema and Air of Kurnus. Over here, Sisters of the Thorn, as well as Wild Riders with Shield. So nothing too fancy. You can see over here I do try to get a little greedy with Knights of the Blazing Sun, and immediately I'm going to regret it because, of course, true to Wood Elf form, I'm going to get netted with Brave Anathrema and then promptly duped by Starfire Shaft. So rough stuff. Knights of the Blazing Sun don't have resistance to fire. They just have resistance to magic damage. So they're going to have to sit here and get beamed in the face because I don't have heals for them. Nonetheless, we are pushing in. You can see my swordmen in line, slowly but surely creeping forward, helping with flagellants. You can see the Light Wizard here took a nasty volley from the Way Watchers, showing just how much damage they can do. And you can see we're pushing right in. You can see my opponent's already shifted fire, focusing on the Knights of the Blazing Sun as they crest this ridge. And I've definitely taken quite a beating. I've already lost about a quarter of a unit of Knights of the Blazing Sun, HP-wise. Empire Captain's fine, but these guys are a little beat up. And things are definitely looking a little rough. But we do get a nice little charge here. You can see I got a nice net of a Mintok off on the Hawkeyes of Drakira, but my opponent blocked me with the Wild Riders' Shields and immediately surrounds me and starts beating me down. I'm not able to extricate myself, so it's a bit of a disaster. Fortunately, though, the second unit of Knights of the Blazing Sun pushing in, getting hit by a Frost Protection, so getting that extra armor melee defense, which is great against Wood Elves who don't have too much, or in this sort of situation where they don't have too much AP. But you can see the Wardens of Cithrall already raking in the kills, doing an absolute great job just stopping the push right here and there, just dragging those Knights into the muck, and really a pretty powerful unit in this sort of situation. However, I do manage to extricate my Knights of the Blazing Sun, and despite getting nuked by Penumbral Pendulum, my swordsmen are sticking in there. Boris is in there beating down this lady, and the Wardens of Cithrall all forced to withdraw. And you can see over here the flagellants, the swordsmen closing in, beating down the tree. Can definitely mistake there, blobbing up. I should separate the flagellants, but it's kind of working out. You can see over here we're swinging around the periphery with our Knights of the Blazing Sun, and I definitely think my opponent should try to perhaps bring the Tricksters, Loic, I do believe they are, the or Loic's Tricksters, the Regiment of Renown War Dancers, because they are very flexible. But nonetheless, you can see here a Withering Fire coming in on the Knights of the Blazing Sun. They're already down to about half health. That Waywatcher Fire comes in. You can see that Discouraged effect kicks in. And these guys, before on the charge, are losing morale. Normally, units are gaining morale on the charge, and these guys lose it. That's how potent Scourge is. And despite the fact that they get the full charge here on the Knights of Wild Riders, they're immediately going to get netted, and they're going to get massacred. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, you can see his front line is not doing anywhere near as well. You can see the Sisters of the Thorn, although holding okay here, are slowly but surely getting chewed down. The Way Stalker, of course, not meant to be in this sort of engagement, struggling, failing. Empire Captain, hit by Curse of Honorary here, but with the Silver Bullets wailing on the Treekin, they're not going to last that long. This is why you bring Silver Bullets. They give you a bit of power if you need to stop Durthu, if you need to stop a Treeman, Treekin, those sorts of units. Sisters of the Thorn, they can zone them away too. So use them in this sort of situation. You can see my Knights of the Blazing Sun getting absolutely wailed on by that fire from the Way Watchers, and it's brutal stuff. I'm definitely taking a huge beating here on these heavy cav. But I'm able to get Boris into the Howheiser of Drakira, doing quite a bit of damage. Here the Branch Wraith getting chipped away at, and you can see things definitely not looking great for the Empire Cav regiments. They're routed. Curse of Honorary completely nuked down their stats. The Empire Captain, though, standing strong. You can see with the Empire Infantry pushing through now, despite Smoke Bomb hitting Boris and preventing him from chasing. And this is really powerful. You can see the Hawkeyes here able to get distance, able to escape from Boris just because they cast Smoke Bomb. So it's potent stuff there. And unfortunately for my opponent, though, it's not going to save his bacon here, because you can see there's so many swordsmen coming in. Boris, of course, pushing forward, and there's only so much he can cover. Dryads might beat swordsmen and flagellants in a 1v1, but with the captain in there, with the cavalry in there, it's not going to be a struggle. And you can see the Starfire Shafts here, even so badly beaten up. Knights of the Blazing Sun on 13 miles, still deliver a monstrous charge here. Still knock down a huge chunk of their HP. Second unit of Knights aren't even going to make it into range, I don't believe. They rout before they make it, but Boris is in there, swordsmen are in there, and these guys are in a bad spot. You can see the Silver Bullets here, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun catch the Glady, so bad stuff for her. I hit her with a net of Mintok, and she gets completely killed. Always try to kill Lords if you can. It's actually very beneficial. You can see my opponent, though, casting Earth's Blood, getting some benefit there, but it's not going to be saving him. You can see the Branch Wraith here buckling under pressure, the Light Wizard pushing into support. On the periphery, the Knights of the Blazing Sun have finally been kind of slaughtered, except for the single unit that's still on 30-some models over here. But with Frost Protection going down, Boris, of course, being an absolute champ, just tanking through. Boris did get, I do believe, a slight buff to his stats and in his pass patch, so he's definitely pretty solid. You can see he's in here beating down these foul pointy ears, and just look at that awesome press, cutting him down. And so Boris doing a great job, and of course with the rear charges, it's going to be a good game for the poor Wood Elves as they get surrounded and beaten down. Nonetheless, I do think, and you can see some fire there coming out for the Silver Bullets, but nonetheless, I do think that this game demonstrated how powerful those Hawkeyes can be. They managed to break up charges before they even hit from Empire Cav, and Empire Cav is honestly some of the best Cav in the game. The Wardens of Sithral raking in an immense amount of kills in a very short amount of time against heavy Cav. Once again, you can say that you could do better with other factions, heavy hitters, but they're solid. The Wardens of Sithral are an amazing Eternal Guard, essentially, is what they are, and they're so potent. You park them in front of your troops. They've got Vanguard deploy, they've got Armor Sundering. Another thing is you can synchronize, and that's, I think, missing in the... my opponent didn't do this in this match. Whatever, everyone does their own style. But you can put Wardens of Sithral in Vanguard deploy with your Dryads, and with... you can do a massive Vanguard build, and with the Hawkeyes of Drakir in there to break enemy morale, with the Wardens of Sithral to break Armor Sunder, means your Dryads are that much more effective. You can be incredibly potent as the Wood Elves in a Vanguard build, which is rather difficult without the Wardens of Sithral and without that morale breaking of the Hawkeyes. So yeah, this build was basically just competitive. I think competitive Empire build. I would note that Knights of the Blazing Sun got a mass increase. I didn't really feel it this game. I haven't really felt it in any of my games with Empire. Not sure why that is, but I think that is worth noting, that I haven't really seen the effects there. So I do have one more matchup for you guys. This one's going to be a High Elf one, so I do hope this one should be fun. I just wanted to show off some of the Wood Elf regiments. I know it's not my game, or I wasn't the one using the Wood Elves, but I did think my opponent's usage of them was pretty cool, and it was fun to see. So we're going to hop on over to High Elf 1. Great game to Alakian here. And yeah, this last one should be fun. So here we are on the Sulphur River, and this time around we are playing as High Elves against the Stunties. And this is a matchup that the High Elves are already very heavily advantaged in, but nonetheless, my opponent's build here is a bit ludicrous. And I also did want to show off Alariel and how potent she can be, or whether or not she's even any good, and show her off along with some, I guess, just one regiment around. I did bring the Pure Main Company, and actually, in retrospect, I don't know why I brought them. I'd originally been planning to do a different build with archers, and that's why I figured that armor sundering would be nice, but then I forgot and kept the Pure Main Company in. So regardless, they do have the Guardian ability, which did get nerfed. The physical resist here is from Alariel, who has a passive 12% physical resist when you pick up one of her items. And that's really who I'm going to be focusing on in this match, is probably Alariel, and as well as my opponent's ridiculous build a little bit. But you can see, if we look at Alariel real quick, we can see she does get the Shield Stone of Isha, which is a nice little item, granting physical resist when she casts. She does have both Lore of Light and Lore of... she has a mix of Lore of Light, High, and Life Magic. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of these mixed bag spell comps, but her selection's okay. She does have Shield of Safri, she does have Life Bloom, which is a nice double whammy of heal and shield. I did bring Faust Protection, I did bring Banishment, Earthblood, and then she does have this, she does of course have Arcane Conduit, as well as Stave of Avalorn, which is a huge improvement to power. And then Star of Avalorn, which is a mini sort of Earthblood. It's only got a 15 meter radius, so nothing too fancy, but you know, it lasts 27 seconds, which is actually longer than Earthblood, and it can heal a lot. It can heal 3 different allies in a 15 meter radius, which is usually all you're getting anyway. So really, really strong, and pretty cool little item. So she's got so we'll kind of see how she does. I didn't put her on an eagle here because I figured, you know, dwarves can bring a lot of shooting, and it would be sad if the queen got sniped. For my opponent's build, though, I think we're ready to see a lot more Slayer charges, or Slayer rushes. My opponent got a whole front line of Giant Slayers. And you can see these guys are actually absolutely brutal against the High Elves. You might think the Swordmasters will completely dumpster him, and Swordmasters probably will out trade him in a straight up fight. But because these guys have 0 armor, they're not. The AP doesn't really matter. These guys still have Death Blow, which is a huge boost to damage output. You're probably not bringing much shooting as High Elves, and the weapon strength is monstrous. 43 with 33 of that being AP, so over 3/4, and 50 melee attack. So they've got a great chance to hit, especially on the charge with 32 charge bonus, which is right on par with units such as, you know, Black Orcs and Chaos Great Weapons. So these guys are absolutely monsters. Definitely watch out. And of course, they're much better against large. But had I brought, say, Dragon Princes, and that was something I was contemplating in this build, I would have been absolutely dumpstered. Now my opponent did have some shooting of his own. He did bring an organ gun. He did bring some warriors with great weapons in the back. And 2 Bugman's Rangers, so providing himself with some range fire, not going all in with this sort of doggy rush, but definitely a very cool idea, and actually potentially very viable, and we'll see how it does against the High Elves. You can see over here the organ gun getting fired on by all 3 units of the bolt throwers, and they're doing quite a bit of work. My opponent also does have a Rune Lord with all 3 runes, which does make sense. Oftentimes you will see archery from the High Elves, in which case the Rune of Oath and Steel, especially if you have nothing else to spend that money on, is decent. And then of course Master Rune of Negation, Rune of Wrath, and Rune very solid. And I think I might have forgotten the Dragon Max Slayers. They're in there too. Regardless, you can see my opponent hitting me with the Rune of Wrath and Ruin on these Swordmasters, but immediately I'm pushing Alariel in. I'm pushing the Pure Main Company in, trying to get some charges in on these Giant Slayers, and start doing some work. Unfortunately, I make a big mistake here and leave Alariel in the fight way longer than I should have. I should have pulled her out immediately. Now, I do cast my Star of Avalorn over here, and you can see it's healing quite a bit on these guys. On the charge, it's not going to do as much, but you can see these Giant Slayers are almost already over half gone. The big problem with them, of course, is that they don't ever break, so they're going to keep fighting to the bitter end, even though they get completely dumpstered. Over on this flank, over on the periphery, you can see these Giant Slayers not doing trading too great to the white lines, and this is actually because Alariel's in there, providing that physical resistance, and nonetheless, you can see the white lines would probably lose this fight in the long run, even with Alariel in there. You can see Alariel's getting absolutely trashed. So big mistake on my part pushing her in. The Slayers are basically hitting with every blow with their monsters bonus versus large. On the flanks, though, things are not going as nicely. You can see my opponent's Rune Lord has casted all of his buffs, making these guys much tankier, much more survivable. They are down to 30 armor here because of the armor sundering. So interestingly enough, the armor sundering coming into play. In the meantime, you can see my bolt throwers focusing on the Bugman's Rangers. But really, you can see the fights here not going too great. With the help from the Rune Lord, the Giant Slayers are absolutely dumpstering these troops that were in the front, and really pushing through. Now on my side, I have casted a Faust Protection here, hoping to provide these guys with some additional defensive benefits. And of course, with 61 melee defense, they're going to be blocking or making the Slayers miss most of the time. My opponent has nothing to shut Alariel down, so she's just going to run away and keep providing that physical resistor. And you can see these Giant Slayers are actually starting to lose, or waver, or not waver, but they're starting to fail here against the white lines. Probably once Alariel leaves, which I do decide to do, trying to stiffen up this flank over here, trying to keep her buff going. she'll be in a weaker position. But until then, these guys were trading pretty well, and you can see the Dragonback Slayers are really what tips the tide here. So White Lions trade okay with a little bit of help, and they're much cheaper. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about doing Dowie rushes and thinking about doing those sorts of builds. In the meantime, here in the pits, the Swordmasters have almost won. They've chopped down almost all of these Giant Slayers, and the Dwarf Warriors are not going to last long. So once the Giant Slayers are gone, I'm going to start funneling the Swordmasters over here to intercept the Giant Slayers. As you can see, my bolt throwers keep pounding away at the Bugman's Rangers, who actually, thanks to their regen, and are actually tanking these hits pretty well. You can see they have lost about a dozen models, but nothing. Despite their low HP, they're doing okay. And now I'm forced to start shotgunning these Dragonback Slayers, and this is a big problem for me. I don't really have the tools to cover everything. Granted, I'm not sure it would have made much of a difference, but my opponent doesn't shut down my artillery here, and instead he decides to flank with his Dragonback Slayers. And you can see they're getting absolutely shattered here with their mass fire from the bolt throwers at point blank. And of course, with that scatter shot, they still do pierce, which is absolutely monstrous. You can see that shot there, just staggering Dowie and sending bodies flying. Over here, though, the Swordmasters are winning. Another Frost Protection going down. Very important to use your supporting spells against Giant Slayers. You can see that they're still trading rather well, or still doing quite a bit of work. I did manage to mop up these backline troops, and you know, at this point it's largely clean up in Isle 9. Lariel dives in once again, helping wipe out those last Giant Slayers. The Dwarf Warriors here are irrelevant. They'll get chopped down, and with that, it's going to be a total shatter for my opponent. So 3 wins. I think these were 3 of the better games, honestly, that I've had so far, and hopefully, obviously, I'll have plenty more to show you guys. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. These sorts of ridiculous Dowie builds, I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of them. Especially against factions that are susceptible to that stuff. Massive Giant Slayers, especially against like Empire, could be pretty viable. Back in with a few Bugman's Rangers to shut down Outriders, and honestly, you can pile through, especially if your opponent had decided to bring, say, a bunch of handguns, like I have a tendency of doing with Empire. Giant Slayers and Slayers will swamp them, and they'll be able to shut them down hard. Nothing much. I actually did enjoy Alariel. I do like that physical resist buff. It's much like Wartsag. She's not a pushover in melee either. She's got she's better than, say, Wartsag in melee. She's better than the Fan Enchantress. She's not top tier. She's not a Durthu caster, but she has great casting abilities. She can get a heal and ward save when she casts, plus an AoE physical resist, which is both great. She's got that small mini Earthblood. She's got normal Earthblood, Frost Protection. So a decent selection of spells, decent selection of abilities. I definitely think she's pretty solid. Pure Main Company did not do very well. I honestly wasn't too impressed, but in this situation, there wasn't much to be impressed by. Their armor sundering was useless. I didn't even think to, even though I had originally planned to do a more non-AP build, I didn't even think about it, and so they didn't get much use. So I wouldn't use this as a judgment for them, but I think they're definitely a bit of a niche unit. Basically, they coincide well with non-AP high elf units, which is basically your cavalry and your archers, I guess. For my opponent's build, definitely taking ridiculousness up to the max. I'm not really sure the organ gun is worthwhile in this build. High elves do have superior counter battery fire. I think you'd be better off, honestly, cramming in another unit of Giant Slayers if you're going all in like this. Or perhaps a hero. Additional runesmiths could have provided additional buffs to these Giant Slayers to keep them in the fight a little longer, perhaps nuke down my Swordmasters a little more efficiently. It's a very all or nothing and iffy build, so it's obviously meant more for trolling and surprise value, but still, I definitely think you can make this you can hone this a little bit, make it a little more viable. Nonetheless, good game to my opponent gone here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do hope you found these, if not necessarily all that informative, if not necessarily that amazing, at least give you an idea of what the new patch looks like. Hopefully it's fun and all in, basically just getting used to the meta. It's fun to just try new things and see what's going on instead of sort of stale stuff that's been going on for ages. So I do hope you guys enjoyed. I do hope you found it entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below, because we're going to be putting up a lot of additional content, probably some campaign related stuff too. Yeah, I do. If you guys have any comments, criticisms, anything like that, be sure to share them and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.